Something happened behind the scenes of global power. Something so serious that if even a fraction of it is true, it means the strongest military force on Earth walked into a situation it did not fully control. And the real story might be far bigger than what is being shown to the public. This was not just another operation, not just another mission that failed quietly. This was something that insiders are now describing as a breakdown at a level that forces a terrifying question. Was this a mistake? Or was it a setup from the very beginning? And the most unsettling part is this, because if the reports circulating in intelligence circles are even partially accurate, then what we're looking at is not just a failed strike, but a moment that could shift global power in ways people are still underestimating. Before we move ahead, I want to say something from the heart. I spend so much effort analyzing the news and collecting every important detail, yet many of you do not even like, subscribe, or share, and I reply to all of your comments too. But still the response is so little that it genuinely hurts. So please follow both Market Mindset and Market Mindset 2 before we continue. Now step back for a moment, because this story does not begin with helicopters or aircraft or even this operation. It begins decades earlier, in a slow-burning conflict between two nations that never trusted each other and never truly stepped away from confrontation. The United States and Iran have been locked in a strategic rivalry for over 40 years. A rivalry shaped by sanctions, proxy wars, nuclear fears, and constant pressure that has built up like tension waiting for a single breaking point. At the center of this tension lies Iran's nuclear program, a program that Washington views as a direct threat, while Tehran insists it is completely legitimate, completely sovereign, and completely non-negotiable. That is where the real problem begins, because when both sides refuse to step back, diplomacy eventually reaches a limit. And once that limit is reached, the conversation shifts into a far more dangerous territory, military action. And according to the reports now being discussed, this operation was not symbolic. It was not a warning. It was not just a show of force. It was designed to do something decisive, something final, something that would permanently change the equation. The objective, if the claims are true, was nothing less than neutralizing Iran's nuclear capability in one calculated move. A mission so ambitious that success would have reshaped global politics overnight. But here's where things start to feel different, because the scale of the operation itself already tells you something was unusual. This was not small, this was not quiet, this was massive coordination. Large transport aircraft, helicopters, highly trained personnel, synchronized movement, all of it happening under the assumption that the element of surprise would hold long enough to secure the objective. In Washington, top officials were reportedly watching everything unfold in real time. The kind of situation where every second matters and every decision can carry consequences that echo far beyond the battlefield. At first, everything appeared controlled, structured, almost predictable. The kind of beginning that gives commanders confidence that the plan is working exactly as intended. But that is often where the danger hides, because in high-risk operations, the first sign of success can sometimes be the last moment before everything starts to fall apart. And according to the accounts now emerging, that is exactly what happened, because suddenly the assumption of surprise collapsed and everything changed in an instant. Iranian forces were not reacting. They were ready, positioned, prepared, and waiting in a way that raises a deeply uncomfortable question. How did they know? That single shift turned the mission from an offensive operation into a survival scenario, where instead of advancing, forces were forced to respond to a situation that was already slipping out of control. Reports suggest aircraft were hit, helicopters were brought down, and intense fire created conditions that commanders had not planned to face so early in the mission. Back in the command centers, the updates coming through were no longer strategic, they were urgent, fragmented, and increasingly alarming. In military doctrine, there's always a moment where continuing a mission becomes impossible to justify. And when that moment arrives, even the most difficult decision becomes unavoidable. That moment reportedly came fast, and when it did, the order was given: abort the mission, protect personnel, and get out, no matter what had to be left behind. And when an operation reaches that point, it is no longer about success or failure. It becomes about damage control, survival, and limiting how bad the outcome can become. In the aftermath, fragments of information began to surface: destroyed equipment, abandoned assets, unclear casualty numbers, and a growing sense that something far bigger had gone wrong. Iran did not stay silent. Instead, it moved quickly to shape the narrative, releasing its version of events, presenting the outcome as a decisive victory and sending a message not just to the US, but to the entire world. And whether every detail is accurate or not, the impact of that narrative alone is powerful enough to shift perception, because in geopolitics, perception often becomes reality. But here's where the story becomes even more serious, because new claims suggest that Iran may not have been acting alone in terms of awareness. According to circulating reports, there are indications that real-time intelligence may have been shared during the operation, allowing Iranian forces to anticipate movements before they fully unfolded. If that is true, then this was not just a failed mission, it was a compromised mission, and that changes everything. That is why attention is now turning toward China, because of its growing strategic relationship with Iran and its increasing role in global power competition. Beijing does not need to engage directly to influence outcomes, because in modern strategy, information can be more powerful than weapons. Intelligence sharing, economic backing, and strategic alignment can shape conflicts without a single official declaration of involvement. From China's perspective, a distracted United States is a strategic advantage, because every crisis Washington manages elsewhere creates space for Beijing to expand its influence. And this is where the situation moves beyond one region, because now we are no longer talking about a US-Iran issue. We are talking about a multi-layered global power dynamic. Iran, if it has indeed gained the upper hand in this moment, understands that such leverage does not last forever. That is why its response has reportedly been aggressive, setting conditions that would have been unthinkable before, demanding changes that directly challenge decades of US presence in the region. Washington, on the other hand, faces a difficult reality, because responding too aggressively risks escalation, while responding too softly risks losing credibility. This is the kind of strategic pressure that defines turning points in history, where every option carries risk and no path is truly safe. For allies watching closely, this is not just about one mission. It is about reliability, trust, and whether the global balance is starting to shift. And when allies begin to question quietly, even without saying it publicly, the impact spreads faster than any official statement. The United States still holds immense power, but moments like this test perception, and perception is often what shapes global alignment. What happens next will determine whether this was a temporary setback or the beginning of something much deeper. Because history has shown that great powers are not defined by their strength alone, but by how they respond when that strength is challenged. And right now, the world is watching very carefully, not just what America says, but what it does next. Whether it escalates, negotiates, or recalibrates will define the next phase of global politics. And the most important part is this: the full story may still not be visible, because what we see now could just be the surface of something far more complex. Every new detail that emerges could change the entire understanding of what really happened during that operation. And if further confirmation supports these claims, then this event may be remembered as a turning point, not just a failed mission. So the real question is not what happened, but what happens next, because that answer will shape the future far more than the event itself. If you want more deep analysis like this, like the video, share it with others, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to Market Mindset so you never miss what comes next.